everyone. Continuing our special weekend featuring acdc, today's song I have just learned is You Shook Me All Night Long. You Shook Me All Night Long is acdc's first single with Brian Johnson as the lead singer, replacing Bon Scott, who died of alcohol poisoning in February 1980. Well, yesterday's song was Highway to Hell, and I commented then on how Bon Scott's voice was so perfect for that song. I couldn't imagine any other voice singing it, really. So today, it looks like I'm listening to acdc's first single with the new singer, and I'm curious to see how did they make this transition? How did this next release compare to what I just listened to with Highway to Hell? And it's going to be interesting to have them so close back to back. I can really make a comparison between the voices and the musical approach and how the band works with it. So that's going to be fun. You Shook Me All Night Long was placed at number 10 on VH1's list of the 100 greatest songs of the 80s. It was also number 1 on VH1's top 10 acdc songs. Guitar World placed You Shook Me All Night Long at number 80 on their 100 greatest guitar solos list. In 2021, it was ranked at number 287 on Rolling Stone's top 500 greatest songs of all time. So another pretty popular song. You know, it's interesting. These two songs actually have a lot in common with even their overall feel and approach. Not just the voice. I'll talk about the voice in a minute. But let's talk about the riff, the instrumental accompaniment. It has a similar kind of, I was talking about the guitar riff in Highway to Hell, how it's got a burst and then a big gap, and a burst and a big gap. It's kind of happening in a similar way here. Maybe not quite so intensely, not quite so strong contrast, black and white. Maybe not quite such clean lines between the two, the burst and the gap, but it's still there. You can still hear it. Same with the feel between the verse and the chorus. The chorus has a smoother, continuous line, whereas the verse kind of imitates the same feel as Highway to Hell. Okay, now to the voice. So interesting hearing these two voices in the same band, so close together, one yesterday, one today, and they have a lot in common. I hear that acdc really wanted to find another singer that could sort of fit the style that they really owned. And they chose a good one. But there are some distinct differences. When I listened to Bon Scott yesterday, I talked about how intense and wild, almost crazy-eyed his voice sounded. This to me doesn't sound quite so crazy-eyed. I would say, if I were going to technically describe the difference between the two, let's see, the singer's name is Brian Johnson. So I would say that Bon Scott's voice and his style of singing, at least in Highway to Hell, was more metallic, like crazy metallic. Whereas Brian Johnson's voice here in You Shook Me All Night Long is more bluesy. There is still a similar style, but somehow his voice and his way of delivery has a little bit more of the blues feel to it. Therefore, to my ears, it's a little less hard. I wouldn't say that it's softer, but it's a little less hard. And it's so interesting hearing them in such close proximity to each other and noticing these subtle differences, because overall they're both doing a great job of performing in a particular style and really owning it, but they're distinct one from the other. I haven't listened to enough of acdc to know whether that is truly the difference between their voices, or whether it is simply adapting a voice to a particular song and musical expression. I tend to think that it is really a difference between the voices, but I won't stand by that 100% at this point in my journey. Even the ending, a sudden ending, so much like Highway to Hell. So, well, this makes me curious. Is this really a signature style of theirs? Do a lot of their pieces have this same sort of style? It's another piece which demonstrates some really good, solid compositional design, consistency, continuity, connection, one part to the other. I really enjoyed the way that the bass answered and followed the melody in the chorus. I also appreciated the guitar and its interjections and contributions. And another example of, okay, the drums, they're so appropriate, you hardly even notice them until you're done, and then you think, oh, you know what? Those drums fit just perfectly, didn't they? One thing I notice about acdc is that they don't beat around the bush. Highway to Hell, it's Highway to Hell. And here with You Shook Me All Night Long, it is a straight to the point, sensual, sexual, steamy reflection on a night with a woman that he was crazy about and is still crazy about. And it's that sort of very straight shooting, direct manner of expression and communication, which some people might shy away from and feel like, oh, that's just too explicit for me. But they do an incredibly good job of it. And coming back to this whole, the voice in each song, I feel like even that, the voice in Highway to Hell was so perfect for that musical expression. It had that little bit of hard edge, little bit of rebel spirit, the crazy-eyed, wild-haired, I'm going my own way whether you want me to or not. Here, this more sensual, sexual musical expression fits the bluesy feeling that comes through a little bit more richly here, fits it so incredibly well. And it's kind of fun to notice how songs that are so similar in so much of their makeup, subtle tweaks make such a big difference. Imagine this one being sung exactly like Highway to Hell, and tell me if it would feel as good. Imagine Highway to Hell being sung like this, and tell me if it would quite sit comfortably. There are just some subtle details between the two, which are so important for how well the song is experienced by us, the listeners. And I have to say that each one feels incredibly well suited to the expression of the text. And in that regard, I'm going to use a word that you might not expect in analyzing or evaluating music like this. I'm going to say they are absolutely lovely in the way they tune the music to the sentiment or the message, the idea that is being expressed. And it's really something that takes skill and sensitivity to get it just right. And in spite of the fact that both of these have so much in common. It's almost like they have a recipe in a way. Yet they've tweaked the recipe to be perfectly suited for that particular song, that particular expression, that particular bit of artwork. And that's lovely to see. And it's also interesting to think about, what happens to a band when some member dies or is no longer able to be a part of the band. I'm thinking something like Queen or The Doors, where the singer was such kind of the center pillar around which the entire band built themselves and adapted, so that when that singer died, suddenly the band couldn't exist, couldn't be the same band anymore. I mean, it was basically over. Or with, say, Led Zeppelin, I know that when the drummer died, that was basically the end, because they were so reliant on his particular drumming style, and they had built themselves around the drums to such an extent that when he was gone, they were gone. And now here we have another great band, acdc. And even though I've only listened to 3 acdc songs at this point in my rock exploration journey, I know enough to know that this is a significant band because so many of you have talked about it on the channel, and I'm sure that I'll continue exploring them along the way. But here's an example of a band who lost an important member, the singer, the frontman, the voice of the band. And they were able to not only find somebody to fit and to join them, which was similar enough that they didn't feel like they lost their stylistic identity, but at the same time, at least in these 2 songs, I hear a subtle adaptation in sound towards a little bit more bluesy sound, which fits, which is his voice. And the band is building their way around and fitting this a little bit more bluesy feel. Therefore, they're able to continue and preserve their identity. And that's impressive. It's impressive. I know it's not a one-time story. I know other bands have had other similar experiences, but it's always interesting to see how do they keep themselves, keep their identity, keep their sound, and how do they adapt it and make it work? Because every single person in a group, especially a small group like a rock band, has such a huge impact on what comes out. Everyone has to work together. You have to adapt. You have to adjust. You have to make it work with what you've got. And you have to have a unified sound that you all feel good about and you all can do well. And this being the first single put out after this transition, I have to say I find it impressive at how well they've already started to find this place with the new makeup of the band. So that is the special weekend. This time, acdc with 2 of their great songs, 2 different singers, fun comparisons, and experience listening to the 2 side by side, or back to back, shall I say. And I'm sure that I will continue exploring them down the road because they were a significant musical influence. I'll see you all soon.